We met up with the folks over at Deposition Sound at the last Rocky Mountain Rep Rap Festival, and we're really interested in their speakers, so we've picked up a kit of their FDMGeo desktop speakers. I'm going to put those together, and then I'm going to do some audio analysis on them in the next video. So to get started, the first thing you have to do, obviously, is pick up the kit that comes with the speakers, your crossover, wire, all the hardware that you need to build them, then print your parts. They have very well thought through instructions on what you need to slice, how you need to lay everything out. They have designed this so that these speakers in particular will print on a 256 millimeter cubic printer. And then from there, it's not a whole lot of assembly. The first step is you need to install these heat set inserts. There are 4 that go in the face, and then there are 4 that go into these standoff feet. From there, the next step is we're going to put the binding terminals on the cabinet. So you've got these binding terminals, positive and negative. You need to disassemble these a little bit because we're going to feed them through the speaker. So this is going to screw through the hole on the back of the enclosure here. And it is a nice, snug fit. One thing you can do, at least on the first one, is you can unscrew that and grab an Allen key. You just wind that in just until it's firmly seated. I'm going to do the same with the negative. And just pay attention to which terminal you've put where. It doesn't matter if positive or negative is on top. Just make sure that they're consistent between the speakers that you're building so that you don't accidentally hook them up in reverse polarity. And again, just finger tight there. This is where I made a little bit of a departure from the order of operations in the assembly manual, because now we have to put the hardware on the inside, and part of that is installing these lugs that the input wires will connect to. I find it kind of difficult to do that, reaching all the way through the speaker. The other thing is the spade lugs that are provided have heat shrink covering on them, and it's possible to get the lug in between the insulation and the back of the connector rather than in the metal part of the connector. I know none of you would ever do that by accident, but I've heard it's possible. So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit and take one of the pre-cut lengths of wire that they supply. I'm going to strip this, crimp the connector on, heat shrink it, and then do the assembly inside. One thing that I found is it's easier to use these kind of standard simple crimpers than any of the ratcheting crimpers that tend to have a much wider jaw on them. Because these have this heat shrink insulation on the back, it's very easy for that to get marred when you're trying to use the wider jawed crimper. So something with a narrower jaw actually is a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and crimp this and then get back to the installation. Okay, now that I have those crimped and the heat shrink has been heat shrunk, I'm going to go ahead and put the connector in. Wow, that is still warm. So there's that done. Now I'm going to flip this over and use the front as a stand to keep those binding terminals off the table. And now install these. So This wire has one side with a red stripe, so I'm using that for positive. So I'll put that over my positive terminal. Negative over the negative terminal, as is tradition. Then each gets a split washer. And then finally a nut. These don't have to be mega tight, but you don't want them to come loose. And my 7mm nut driver will make quick work of getting them nice and snug. Okay, so now we've got our inputs connected to the terminals. Let me move things out of the way here. Next, we're going to get ready with the crossover. So this is the custom-made crossover that ships with the kit. And we'll take 4 of these screws. And we attach the feet. And again, these don't have to be super duper tight. As my friend Steve from Steve Builds would say, only Ugga, no Dugga. So there are the feet installed on the corners. We've got the input cables that I will make sure are nice and twisted there. Those go into the input connector on the back of the crossover. So we just loosen those Phoenix connectors, and the thing there is, I don't know if I can get the angle. When you look into where the wire goes in here, you want to make sure that you see the little metal lip at the bottom, because what happens is as you tighten the screw, that comes up and puts pressure on the wire and clamps it in. And you just make sure that if you are doing it the way I did, then you hooked up the wire with the red stripe to the positive input terminal that goes into the terminal marked plus on the input. And you just want to tighten those screws down until you don't feel any more resistance, and then give that a little tug to make sure that that is connected. So now I have to crimp the other connectors, which are for the output. That's going to use 2 more of these heat shrink connectors. And then there are 2 of these smaller connectors, which are for the high frequency driver. So I'm going to get those crimped and connected to the crossover, and then we're ready for the next step. So I've got that done. The wire that has the pink connectors on it is for the low end driver. So that gets connected to the LF output of the crossover. So I'm just going to loosen all of these terminals, get the wire in, and same thing, pay attention to where the red stripe is going in. Again, I'm making the red striped wire positive. When you look at the connector for the output to the speakers, the positives are on the outside, so it's plus, minus, minus, plus, not plus, minus, plus, minus. Just take your time and make sure that you get that correct, because you really don't want to have your woofer and your tweeter out of phase, it will make your sound really bad. So just work slowly and carefully and you will be fine. Okay, and that is good and secure. And now I'm going to do the same thing with the blue connectored wire, which is for the tweeter or high frequency. That is going to go into the HF output of the crossover. So at this point, it's time to put the crossover module into the speaker enclosure. And we are going to do that with super glue. So I have some super glue, cyanoacrylate adhesive. It is not super glue. And the one that I got has a spray accelerator. So this will make that bond really quickly. So this is not something that you want to use if you think you might need to align parts. I mean, pretty much once this goes, it's done. What I'm going to do is put some glue in. There are little divots. Let's see if I can show this, because now that I've got everything connected, there are these little divots printed into the bottom. That gives you a guide of where the feet need to go. So I can put my glue in there. I'm going to spray the accelerant on the feet. And then once they go into those divots, they're never going to move again. So let me get that done. Okey-dokey. Doesn't need to be a ton of glue, just a little dollop. Especially with the accelerant, this will bond really quickly and really thoroughly. So just a little bit of that, and into the enclosure, just kind of guide that cable out of the way. And there we go. Whew, that stinks. Literally, that smells. So that's done. I'm going to give this a second to cure. The next step is we're going to install the speaker batting. This is a sound deadening material that we're going to put in here. Let me, yeah, that's already not moving at all. So going to do the same thing, put that up, and you can see that that's just stuck there. Now this batting is very compressed in here. So we're going to need to pull it out. We're just going to start. You want to give this the ability to kind of decompress. We'll pack it all in here. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to stop standing waves from reverberating within this cabinet. So you kind of want this to be fluffy. So you want to get that, you almost want to tease it out a little bit. You want to maximize the structure of this. Make sure you get it all around there. Now remember, the woofer is going to be here, so that's naturally going to compress that a little bit. So you can kind of work your way sort of around that, and make sure you don't block this port, because that's going to allow air to escape the enclosure. So there's the batting put in. What worked well for me when I built the last one was to take these and kind of set them in the port itself, because the next step is we are going to glue the face on this. To do that, we're going to use our cyanoacrylate glue again. You can use the accelerator with this, or you can use a clamp or pressure to keep it together. What I'm going to do is use pressure. Specifically, I'm going to use this 10-pound dumbbell. So try and get the batting away from this ridge that goes around here. And what we're going to do is put a bead of super glue along the inside of that ridge. So I'm just going to tuck this in a little bit. Now, this is one place where a little bit more glue will help. We want this joint to be very solid. So again, I'm just going to put a nice bead of glue here. Making sure that I've got complete coverage. And back to the start. Now the moment of truth. Hold this. Going to take this. And this just snaps into place. I'm going to put it upside down. Okay, so there is the cabinet. And I'm going to put this 10-pound weight on top. And I'm going to let this sit for at least half an hour. And then I will be back to do the next part of the assembly. All right, so it's been about half an hour. This should be set. So I'll take that off. And now we have our enclosure, and we're ready to go on to the next step. So I am going to use this box. So I can put that there, and let's start installing the drivers. First is the dome tweeter. Now this comes with a little plastic protective cover, which is great. One thing that Deposition Sound encourages you to do, and it is 100% a great idea, is to take these connection tabs and bend them away from the magnet housing, just to make sure that you don't accidentally short anything out there. Now I need to get this cable. And that comes through this hole. We will leave the fluff behind. And the same deal, we have the red wire attached here. So we make sure that that connects to, see if you can see that, to the red terminal. And just get that all the way on. And the same for the other. Okay. Now going to take that cover off and slide the tweeter down. And that is just a really nice press fit. Overall, I've been really impressed with the tolerances that have been designed into the printed parts. Part of that is also up to the skill of my boss, Daniel, who actually did the printing for this project. But Deposition Sound did a really good job with their STL creation and the slicing settings that they recommend. Next up is the low-end driver. Now, this is the same deal. We have a plastic cover, and we've got this protective foam. We'll get rid of that. So here we have our positive labeled. So we'll get the positive cable. That goes there. Negative goes to the other terminal. Now just kind of guide those in. Get that in, and now we have to line up these holes with the heat inserts that were installed earlier. Get my screws. And don't screw these down all the way. You want to leave a little bit of wiggle room, partially because we're going to tighten them down in a specific order, and partially because it makes it easier as we kind of get things lined up and put the other screws in if those are a little loose. Because if you take the first one, tighten it down all the way, and then you really need to rotate the speaker a little bit to get other screws to line up, then you won't be able to. So now that I've got this last one, I'll tighten that down. Again, make it tight, but don't crush it. And Deposition Sound recommends using a crisscross pattern. So tighten that one. Go to this one. And then the last one. And our last step is installing the trim ring around the woofer. I've got this trim ring that was printed. Now this, I'll see if I can get that to focus. This has a beveled edge, so you want to put that bevel in. There's a groove here, and the idea is that we need to flex this a little bit and sort of work it around to get that into place. It's a little bit of a tricky thing. And there we go. Last step, I think I might have actually skipped a step here, is we have these indentations on the bottom. So there are some really nice feet that go on there. You've got a little bit of squish and a slightly rubbery texture that hopefully will keep them from scooching around. And that is the speaker complete. So here is the completed FDMGeo. So now I have the speaker connected to the amplifier, and I've grabbed my laptop, which I've already paired to the amp, and let's give it a go. So that is working really nicely. So in the next video, I am going to get this set up with a little bit of sound deadening here in my space and do a little audio analysis on it. And we'll take a look at what the performance is really like in a quantitative way rather than just listening to it, and see what we can find out about these speakers. So I hope you enjoyed seeing this get put together. It's a really fun project. If you're interested in getting 3D printed speakers, these seem to be working really well. And we'll put some numbers behind that in the next video, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching.